My husband died in my arms, and his family looked me in the eyes and told me it was my fault. They said I killed him. They said I was the reason their son was gone. But what they did not know was that my husband left something behind. A letter that would change everything. And when they finally read it, the truth destroyed them. If this story hits you deep, make sure you subscribe to her words right now, because what happens next is going to break your heart. Hit that subscribe button. My name is Emma. I am 32 years old, and I want to tell you about the worst year of my life. The year I lost my husband. The year his family turned against me. And the year I learned that sometimes the people who are supposed to love you are the ones who hurt you the most. This is my story, and it is not an easy one to tell. But I need to share it because I know there are people out there who have gone through something similar. People who have been blamed for things they did not do. People who have been destroyed by grief and by the cruelty of others. If that is you, then I want you to know you are not alone. My name is Emma, and this is what happened to me. I met Michael when I was 24 years old. He was 27 at the time. We met at a coffee shop near my apartment. I was sitting alone reading a book, and he walked up to my table and asked if he could sit down. I looked up at him and I saw the kindest eyes I had ever seen in my life. He had this warm smile that made me feel safe right away. So I said yes. And we talked for 3 hours that day. About everything. About life, about dreams. About what we wanted from the world. Michael was different from anyone I had ever met. He was gentle. He was thoughtful. He listened when I talked. And he made me laugh in a way that I had not laughed in years. We started dating a few weeks later. And 6 months after that, Michael told me he loved me. I remember the moment so clearly. We were sitting on a bench in the park watching the sunset. He turned to me and held my hand and said, "Emma, I love you." And I have never been more sure of anything in my life. I looked at him and I felt my whole heart open up. I said, "I love you too, Michael." And I meant it with everything I had. We got married 2 years later. It was a small wedding. Just close friends and family. Michael's family was there. His mother, Margaret. His father, Robert. His older brother, David. And his younger sister, Sarah. I remember looking at them during the ceremony and feeling like something was off. Margaret did not smile once. Not when Michael and I said our vows. Not when we kissed. Not when we walked down the aisle together as husband and wife. She just sat there with her arms crossed and her face cold. I asked Michael about it later that night. He told me not to worry. He said his mother was just protective. He said she would come around eventually. But deep down I knew that was not true. Margaret did not like me. And she was never going to like me. The first few years of our marriage were beautiful. Michael and I were happy. We had our own little apartment. We both had jobs we loved. We spent our weekends exploring the city. And cooking dinner together and talking about the future. We talked about having kids one day. About buying a house. About growing old together. Everything felt perfect. Except for one thing. Michael's family. Margaret never warmed up to me. Every time we visited her, she would make little comments. Small. Things that seemed harmless on the surface but cut deep when you really thought about them. She would say things like, "Emma, you look tired. Are you taking care of my son?" Or, "Emma, that dress does not really suit you, does it?" Or, "Michael, you should come visit us more often." Without Emma, just you. She never said anything directly cruel. But the message was clear. I was not good enough for her son. I was not part of the family. I was an outsider. And I always would be. David was the same way. He was cold to me. Dismissive. He barely spoke to me at family gatherings. And when he did speak, it was usually to criticize something. The way I talked. The way I dressed. The job I had. He made me feel small every time I was around him. Robert was different. He was quiet. He never said much. But he also never defended me. He just sat there and let Margaret and David treat me however they wanted. The only person in Michael's family who was ever kind to me was Sarah. Sarah was sweet. She would talk to me at dinners. She would ask me how I was doing. She made me feel like I mattered. But even Sarah could not stand up to Margaret. No one could. I tried to talk to Michael about it many times. I told him how his family made me feel, how Margaret's comments hurt me, how David treated me like I did not exist. But Michael always brushed it off. He would say, they just need time, Emma. They will come around. Or you are being too sensitive. They do not mean it that way. And I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe that one day his family would accept me. But years passed and nothing changed. If anything, it got worse. About a year before Michael died, things started to change. Michael started feeling tired all the time. He would come home from work completely exhausted. He would sit on the couch and fall asleep before dinner. I told him he needed to see a doctor. He said he was fine. Just stressed from work. But I knew something was wrong. A wife knows. I could see it in his eyes. I could feel it when I held him at night. Something was not right. One night, Michael woke up in the middle of the night gasping for air. He was holding his chest and his face was pale. I jumped out of bed and turned on the light. Michael, what is wrong? I said. He tried to speak, but he could not catch his breath. I grabbed my phone and told him I was calling 911. He grabbed my hand and said, no, Emma, I am fine. It is just a panic attack. I will be okay. But I did not believe him. I begged him to let me take him to the hospital. He refused. He said he just needed to breathe. So I sat there next to him and held his hand and rubbed his back until his breathing slowed down. When he finally calmed down, I looked at him and said, Michael, please go see a doctor. Something is wrong. He looked at me with tired eyes and said, okay, I will go. I promise. But he did not go. He kept making excuses. He said he was too busy at work. He said he felt fine. He said I was worrying too much, and I let it go because I did not want to push him. I did not want to be the nagging wife. But looking back now, I wish I had pushed harder. I wish I had forced him to go. Maybe things would have been different. Maybe he would still be here. The night Michael died started out like any other night. We were at home. I was making dinner in the kitchen. Michael was sitting at the table, on his laptop answering work emails. I remember looking over at him and thinking he looked so tired. His face was pale and there were dark circles under his eyes. I told him he should rest. He said he would after he finished his emails. I brought him a glass of water and kissed the top of his head. He smiled at me and said, thank you, baby. I love you. I said, I love you too. And I walked back to the kitchen. 5 minutes later, I heard a loud crash. I turned around and Michael was on the floor. His chair had fallen over. His laptop was on the ground, and he was lying there not moving. I ran over to him and dropped to my knees. His eyes were open, but he was not responding. His breathing was shallow and fast. I grabbed my phone and called 911. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the phone. I told the operator my husband collapsed. I told them to send help. They told me to stay calm. They told me to check if he was breathing. I put my hand on his chest and I could feel his heart beating, but it was too fast. Way too fast. I stayed on the phone with the operator and I held Michael's hand. I kept telling him to hold on. I kept telling him help was coming. I kept saying, I love you, Michael. Please do not leave me. Please do not leave me. His eyes looked at me and I could see the fear in them. He tried to say something, but nothing came out, and then his eyes closed, and his hand went limp in mine. I screamed. I screamed so loud I thought my throat was going to tear apart. I started doing CPR like the operator told me to. I pushed on his chest over and over. I breathed into his mouth. I begged him to come back. But he did not come back. The paramedics arrived 10 minutes later. They rushed in and took over. They worked on him right there on our kitchen floor. I stood in the corner watching them try to save my husband. I could not breathe. I could not think. I just stood there frozen. They put Michael on a stretcher and carried him to the ambulance. I rode with them to the hospital. I held his hand the whole way. I kept whispering, please, Michael, please do not leave me. But deep down I knew he was already gone. At the hospital, they took him into the emergency room. I sat in the waiting room alone. I called Margaret. I told her Michael collapsed. I told her to come to the hospital. She asked me what I did. What did you do to him, Emma? She said. I did not answer. I just hung up and sat there in that cold waiting room staring at the white walls. 30 minutes later, a doctor came out. He looked at me with sad eyes and I knew before he even said it. I am so sorry, he said. We did everything we could. But your husband did not make it. He is gone. I felt like someone had ripped my heart out of my chest. I could not breathe. I could not move. I just sat there staring at the doctor. This was not real. This could not be real. Michael could not be gone. We were supposed to grow old together. We were supposed to have kids. We were supposed to have a whole life ahead of us. And now he was gone. The doctor told me it was a massive heart attack. He said Michael's heart just gave out. He said there was nothing anyone could have done. But I did not hear any of that. All I heard was he is gone. He is gone. He is gone. Margaret arrived at the hospital 20 minutes later. Robert was with her. David and Sarah came right after. They walked into the waiting room and I stood up to tell them. But before I could say anything, Margaret looked at me with fire in her eyes. Where is my son? She said. I opened my mouth but no words came out. The doctor stepped forward and told them. He told them Michael had passed away. He told them it was a heart attack. Margaret let out a scream that I will never forget for the rest of my life. It was a scream filled with so much pain and anger that it made my whole body shake. She fell to her knees and Robert tried to hold her, but she pushed him away. David stood there frozen. Sarah started crying. And then Margaret looked up at me. She looked at me with so much hate in her eyes that I took a step back. What did you do? Margaret said. Her voice was low and shaking. What did you do to my son? I did not understand what she was asking. I shook my head and said nothing. I did nothing. I tried to save him. I called 911. I did everything I could. Margaret stood up slowly. She walked toward me and pointed her finger in my face. You killed him, she said. You killed my son. I felt like I had been slapped across the face. I looked at her in shock. What are you talking about? I said. I did not kill him. He had a heart attack. You did this, Margaret said. You stressed him out. You pushed him too hard. You were never good enough for him and you know it. And now he is dead because of you. David stepped forward and stood next to his mother. He looked at me with the same hate in his eyes. You need to leave, he said. You do not belong here. This is family only. I looked around the room, at Robert who said nothing, at Sarah who was crying quietly, at the doctor who looked uncomfortable. And I realized something in that moment. I realized that no matter what I said, no matter what I did, Michael's family was never going to see me as anything other than the woman who killed their son. I walked out of that hospital alone. I did not have anyone, no family of my own, no close friends nearby. Just me. I went home to the apartment I shared with Michael. The apartment where he died just hours before. I walked into the kitchen and saw the spot on the floor where he collapsed. I fell to my knees right there and I cried harder than I have ever cried in my entire life. My husband was gone. And his family blamed me for it. And I had no idea that the worst was yet to come. The days after Michael's death were the darkest days of my entire life. I could not eat. I could not sleep. I could barely even breathe. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Michael lying on that kitchen floor. I saw his face going pale. I saw his hand going limp in mine. The image was burned into my brain and I could not make it go away no matter how hard I tried. I stayed in the apartment alone. I did not leave except to go to the grocery store when I absolutely had to. I did not answer phone calls. I did not talk to anyone. I just sat on the couch in the living room staring at the walls. The apartment felt so empty without Michael. Everywhere I looked I saw him. His coffee mug on the counter. His jacket hanging by the door. His shoes by the bed. It was like he was still there but he was not. And that made the pain even worse. 3 days after Michael died, Margaret called me. I saw her name on my phone and my stomach dropped. I did not want to talk to her. I did not want to hear her voice. But I answered anyway because part of me thought maybe she was calling to apologize. Maybe she realized she was wrong. Maybe she was going to tell me she was sorry for what she said at the hospital, but that is not what happened. Emma, we need to talk about the funeral, Margaret said. Her voice was cold. There was no warmth in it at all. Okay, I said quietly. I am listening. We are planning the funeral for Saturday, Margaret continued. It will be at St. Peter's Church at 2 p.m. You can come if you want. But I do not want you sitting with the family. You will sit in the back. And you will not speak. Do you understand? I could not believe what I was hearing. I was Michael's wife. I was his partner for 6 years. I was the person who loved him more than anyone in this world. And his mother was telling me I could not sit with the family at his own funeral. Margaret, I said. My voice was shaking. I was his wife. I have every right to sit with the family. You have no rights, Emma, Margaret said. Her voice got louder now. You were the reason my son is dead. You stressed him out. You made his life harder. And now he is gone. So you will do what I say or you will not come at all. I wanted to scream at her. I wanted to tell her she was wrong. I wanted to tell her that I loved Michael more than she ever did. But I did not. I just sat there holding the phone and crying silently. Fine, I said. I will sit in the back. Margaret hung up without saying another word. The funeral was on Saturday. Just like Margaret said. I got dressed that morning in a simple black dress. I did my hair. I put on a little bit of makeup to try to hide how terrible I looked. But nothing could hide the pain in my eyes. Nothing could hide the fact that I had been crying for days straight. I arrived at the church early. I wanted to see Michael one last time before everyone else got there. The casket was at the front of the church. It was closed. I walked up to it slowly and I put my hand on the wood. I stood there for a long time just staring at it. My husband was inside that box. The man I loved. The man I was supposed to spend the rest of my life with. And I was never going to see him again. I leaned down and whispered, I love you, Michael. I am so sorry I could not save you. I am so sorry. I heard footsteps behind me and I turned around. It was Sarah. She was wearing a black dress and her eyes were red from crying. She walked up to me and without saying a word she hugged me. I hugged her back and we both stood there crying together. I am so sorry, Emma, Sarah whispered. I am so sorry for what my mother said to you. She is wrong. You did not kill Michael. You loved him. Everyone knows that. I pulled back and looked at Sarah. Thank you, I said. That means more to me than you know. Sarah nodded and wiped her eyes. But then she looked at me with sad eyes and said, but, Emma, you need to be careful. My mother is not going to let this go. She's telling everyone that you are responsible. She is saying terrible things about you. And people are starting to believe her. My heart sank. What do you mean? I asked. Sarah looked down at the floor. She has been calling family members, friends, people from the church. She is telling them that you pushed Michael too hard, that you made him work too much, that you did not take care of him. She is saying that you are the reason he had a heart attack. I felt sick. I felt like I was going to throw up right there. In the church, Margaret was not just blaming me in private. She was telling the whole world that I killed my husband. More people started arriving at the church. Family members, friends, co-workers of Michael. I saw them looking at me, whispering to each other. I could feel their eyes on me, judging me, blaming me. I walked to the back of the church and sat down in the last row like Margaret told me to. I sat there alone while everyone else sat together in the front. The service started. The pastor spoke about Michael's life, about what a good man he was, about how much he loved his family. Margaret stood up and gave a speech. She talked about Michael as a little boy, about how proud she was of him, about how much she missed him. And then at the end of her speech, she looked directly at me. Her eyes were filled with hate. She did not say my name, but everyone knew who she was talking about. My son deserved better, Margaret said. He deserved a life filled with love and peace, but he did not get that. And now he is gone. The church was completely silent. I sat there in the back row feeling like everyone was staring at me, like everyone thought I was a murderer. I wanted to stand up and scream that I did nothing wrong, that I loved Michael with everything I had, that I tried to save him, but I did not. I just sat there and took it. After the service was over, people walked past me without saying a word. Some of them looked at me with pity. Some of them looked at me with disgust. No one stopped to talk to me. No one told me they were sorry for my loss. It was like I did not exist. I went to the burial. I stood far away from the family. I watched as they lowered Michael's casket into the ground. I watched Margaret cry and fall into Robert's arms. I watched David stand there with his jaw clenched. I watched Sarah wipe her tears, and I stood there alone. Completely alone. After the burial, I went back to the apartment. I thought that would be the end of it. I thought Margaret would leave me. Alone now. But I was wrong. 2 days later, I got a letter in the mail. It was from a law firm. I opened it and my hands started shaking as I read it. The letter said that Margaret and Robert were planning to contest Michael's will. Michael had left everything to me. The apartment, his savings, his life insurance, everything. But Margaret was saying that I did not deserve any of it. She was saying that I should not get a single dollar because I was responsible for his death. I called the number on the letter. Allow your name, Mr. Davis answered. I told him who I was. He told me that Margaret had hired them to investigate the circumstances around Michael's death. He said they were looking into whether or not I had been negligent. Whether I had failed to get Michael medical help in time. Whether I had contributed to his death in any way. I am his wife, I said. I loved him. I tried to save him. How can you even ask me these questions? Mr. Davis said he was just doing his job. He said if I had nothing to hide, then I had nothing to worry about, but I knew what he was really saying. He was saying that Margaret was going to destroy me. And there was nothing I could do to stop it. The weeks after the funeral were a nightmare. Margaret did not stop. She called everyone she knew and told them I was responsible for Michael's death. People in the neighborhood started treating me differently. They would not look at me when I walked by. They would whisper when they saw me. One woman who used to smile and say hello to me every morning stopped talking to me completely. I heard her tell another neighbor that I should be ashamed of myself. I lost friends. People I thought cared about me stopped answering my calls. One of my closest friends told me she did not want to be involved in the drama. She said she did not know what to believe anymore. And then she stopped talking to me. I started seeing a therapist. Her name was Dr. Lisa. She was kind and patient, and she listened to everything I had to say. I told her about Michael, about the night he died, about Margaret blaming me, about how I felt like I was going insane. Dr. Lisa told me I was suffering from trauma and grief. She told me that what Margaret was doing to me was emotional abuse. She told me I needed to protect myself, but how could I protect myself? How could I fight back against a woman who had just lost her son? How could I defend myself when the whole world thought I was guilty? One afternoon I was at the grocery store. I was walking down the aisle trying to find something to eat even though I had no appetite. I turned the corner and I saw Margaret. She was standing there with a cart full of groceries. She saw me and her face went cold. She stared at me like I was the worst person in the world. I did not know what to do. I thought about turning around and walking away. But then Margaret started walking toward me. She stopped right in front of me and looked me in the eyes. You have a lot of nerve showing your face in public, Margaret said. Her voice was low and sharp. Margaret, please, I said. I did not do anything wrong. I loved Michael. You know that. You did not love him, Margaret said. If you loved him, he would still be alive. I felt tears burning in my eyes, but I refused to cry. In front of her, that is not fair, I said. Michael had a heart attack. The doctors said there was nothing anyone could have done. The doctors are wrong, Margaret said. You killed my son. And one day everyone is going to know the truth. She turned around and walked away. I stood there in the middle of the grocery store shaking. I left my cart right there and walked out. I got in my car and I cried for an hour. I cried until I had no tears left. That night I got a call from Detective Harris. He was a police detective and he said he needed to ask me some questions about the night Michael died. My heart started racing. Why was a detective calling me? Was Margaret really trying to have me arrested? Detective Harris came to my apartment the next day. He was a tall man with gray hair and a serious face. He sat down across from me at the kitchen table and pulled out a notebook. He asked me to walk him through the night Michael died. I told him everything. I told him about making dinner, about Michael sitting at the table, about him collapsing, about me calling 911, about trying to do CPR. I told him every single detail. Detective Harris listened and took notes. Then he asked me if Michael and I had been fighting that night. I said no. He asked me if I had been giving Michael any medications. I said no. He asked me if there was any reason I would have wanted to hurt my husband. I looked at him in shock. No, I said. I loved my husband. I would never hurt him. Why are you asking me this? Detective Harris closed his notebook and looked at me. Mrs. Taylor, I'm just doing my job, he said. There have been some concerns raised about the circumstances of your husband's death. I need to make sure there was no foul play. Foul play? I said, you think I murdered my husband? I am not saying that, Detective Harris said. But I have to investigate when questions are raised. I knew exactly who raised those questions. Margaret. She was not just destroying my reputation. She was trying to have me arrested. Detective Harris left after that. He told me he would be in touch if he needed anything else. I sat there in my apartment feeling like my whole world was falling apart. My husband was dead. His family hated me. The whole town thought I was a murderer. And now the police were investigating me. I called Dr. Lisa and told her what happened. She told me to stay strong. She told me the truth would come out eventually. But I did not believe her. How could the truth come out when no one wanted to hear it? That night I lay in bed staring at the ceiling. I thought about Michael. I thought about the life we had together. I thought about all the plans we made. And I thought about how one night had destroyed everything. I did not kill my husband. But his family was never going to believe that. And I had no idea how to prove them wrong. I fell asleep that night feeling more alone than I had ever felt in my entire life. And I had no idea that in just a few weeks everything was about to change, because Michael had left something behind. Something that no one knew about. A letter. A letter that would finally tell the truth. And when his family read it, nothing would ever be the same again. 3 weeks after the funeral, I got a call from a man named Attorney James. He said he was Michael's lawyer and he needed to meet with me. He said it was urgent. He said it was about Michael's estate and there was something important I needed to know. I agreed to meet him at his office the next day. I did not sleep that night. I kept thinking about what Attorney James wanted to tell me. Was it about the will? Was Margaret trying to take everything away from me? Was there more bad news coming? I did not know. But I knew it had to be something big. The next morning I got dressed and drove to Attorney James's office. It was in a tall building downtown. I took the elevator to the 5th floor and walked into an office with dark wood furniture and big windows. Attorney James was sitting behind his desk. He was an older man with white hair and kind eyes. He stood up when I walked in and shook my hand. Mrs. Taylor, thank you for coming, he said. Please sit down. I sat down in the chair across from his desk. My hands were shaking, so I put them in my lap so he would not see. Attorney James sat down and folded his hands on the desk. He looked at me with a serious expression. Mrs. Taylor, I need to tell you something, he said. And I need you to listen carefully because this is very important. I nodded. James said, he told me he was not feeling well. He told me he had been to see several doctors and they had told him something very serious. He made me promise not to tell anyone, not even you. He said he would tell you himself when he was ready. But he never got the chance. My heart started beating faster. What did the doctors tell him? I asked. Attorney James opened a folder on his desk and pulled out some papers. He slid them across the desk to me. I looked down and saw medical reports, doctor's notes, test results. I picked them up with shaking hands and started reading. The words on the page felt like they were in another language at first. But then I started to understand. Michael had been diagnosed with a genetic heart condition. It was called hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. The doctors told him his heart was enlarged and weak. They told him it could fail at any time. They told him he needed surgery. They told him he needed to change his entire life. They told him he might not have much time left. I read through page after page of medical records. Michael had seen 4 different doctors. He had taken tests. He had done everything the doctors asked him to do. And every single doctor told him the same thing. His heart was failing. And there was a very high chance he would die suddenly. I put the papers down on the desk. My hands were shaking so badly now I could barely hold them. I looked up at Attorney James with tears in my eyes. Why did he not tell me? I whispered. Why did he keep this from me? Attorney James looked at me with sympathy in his eyes. He did not want you to worry, he said. He told me he wanted to live as normal a life as possible for as long as he could. He said he did not want you to look at him like he was dying. He wanted you to look at him like you always did. With love, not with pity. I put my hands over my face and started crying. All this time I thought something was wrong. I begged Michael to go to the doctor. I begged him to get help. And he had already known. He had already been told he was dying. And he did not tell me. He carried that secret alone because he did not want to hurt me. Attorney James waited until I stopped crying. Then he reached into his desk drawer and pulled out an envelope. It was sealed. On the front it said in Michael's handwriting, to my family. Attorney James held the envelope in his hands and looked at me. Michael left this with me, he said. He told me that if anything happened to him, I was supposed to give this to his family. All of them. Together. He wanted me to read it out loud in front of everyone. He said it was very important that everyone heard it at the same time. I looked at the envelope. What is in it? I asked. Attorney James shook his head. I do not know, he said. Michael sealed it himself. He told me not to open it until the time was right. And I think that time is now. Attorney James picked up his phone and made a call. I need you to contact the Taylor family, he said to someone on the other end. Margaret, Robert, David, Sarah. Tell them they need to come to my office tomorrow at 2 p.m. Tell them it is about Michael's estate. Tell them it is mandatory. He hung up the phone and looked at me. Tomorrow we are going to find out what your husband wanted to say, he said. And I have a feeling it is going to change everything. I left the office feeling like I was in a dream. Michael knew he was dying. He knew, and he did not tell me. Part of me was angry at him for keeping such a big secret. But part of me understood. He was trying to protect me. He was trying to give us as much normal time together as possible before everything fell apart. And now he was gone. And I would never get to ask him why. The next day I drove back to Attorney James's office. I was so nervous I felt sick. I did not know what was in that letter. I did not know what Michael was going to say. But I knew it was going to be important. And I knew Margaret was not going to be happy about it. When I walked into the office, Margaret and Robert were already there. David was sitting next to them. Sarah was sitting on the other side of the room. They all looked at me when I walked in. Margaret's face went hard. David looked away. Sarah gave me a small, sad smile. Attorney James walked into the room and closed the door behind him. He sat down at his desk and looked at everyone. Thank you all for coming, he said. I know this is a difficult time for all of you. But I asked you here today because Michael left something very important. And he wanted all of you to hear it together. Margaret crossed her arms. What is this about? She said. We already know what is in the will. Michael left everything to her. She pointed at me without even looking at me. Attorney James shook his head. This is not about the will, he said. This is about something else. Something Michael wanted you to know. He picked up the envelope from his desk. He held it up so everyone could see Michael's handwriting on the front. This is a letter from Michael, he said. He gave it to me months ago. He told me to open it only if something happened to him. And he told me to read it out loud in front of all of you. Margaret leaned forward. What does it say? She asked. Attorney James looked around the room. Let us find out, he said. He opened the envelope carefully. He pulled out several pages of paper. They were covered in Michael's handwriting. Attorney James cleared his throat and started reading. To my family. If you are hearing this letter, it means I am gone. And I am so sorry. I am sorry for leaving you. I am sorry for the pain I know you are all feeling right now. But I need you to know the truth. I need you to know what really happened. And I need you to know that the person you should be angry at is not Emma. It is me. Margaret sat up straight. Her face went pale. Attorney James continued reading. A few months ago, I started feeling sick. I went to the doctor and they ran tests. And they told me I have a genetic heart condition. They told me my heart is failing. They told me I could die at any time. They told me I needed surgery and I needed to completely change my life, but I did not do any of that. I chose not to. The room was completely silent. Everyone was staring at Attorney James as he read. I did not tell anyone about my diagnosis, Michael's letter said. Not my parents, not my brother, not my sister, and not my wife. I kept it a secret because I did not want to be treated like I was dying. I wanted to live my life as normally as possible for as long as I had left. I know that was selfish. I know I should have told Emma. She begged me to go to the doctor. She knew something was wrong, but I lied to her. I told her I was fine. And I am so sorry for that. I felt tears rolling down my face. I looked over at Margaret. She was staring at Attorney James with her mouth open. She looked like she had just been hit in the face. Attorney James kept reading. Emma did nothing wrong, Michael's letter continued. She loved me more than anyone in this world. She took care of me. She tried to get me help, but I refused. This is my fault, not hers. And if any of you have blamed her for my death, then you need to stop right now, because she is innocent. She's the best thing that ever happened to me. And she deserves better than the way you have treated her. Sarah started crying. David put his head in his hands. Robert just stared at the floor. And Margaret sat there frozen. Attorney James read the last part of the letter. Mom, I know you never liked Emma, he read. I know you thought she was not good enough for me. But you were wrong. She was everything I ever needed. And I need you to know that if you do not apologize to her, if you do not make this right, then you will lose me twice. Because I will never forgive you for what you did to the woman I love. Attorney James stopped reading. He put the letter down on the desk. The room was completely silent. No one moved. No one spoke. Everyone just sat there trying to process what they had just heard. Then Margaret made a sound. It was a small broken sound like something inside her had just shattered. She put her hands over her face and started crying. Not the angry crying. From before, this was different. This was the crying of someone who had just realized they made a terrible mistake. David stood up and walked out of the room without saying a word. Robert sat there staring at nothing. Sarah got up and walked over to me. She knelt down in front of my chair and grabbed my hands. I am so sorry, Emma, Sarah said. Her face was covered in tears. I am so sorry. We were wrong. We were so wrong. I looked at Sarah and I nodded. I could not speak. I could not say anything. I just sat there crying. Margaret finally looked up at me. Her face was destroyed. Her eyes were red and swollen. She looked like she had aged 10 years in the last 5 minutes. She opened her mouth to say something, but nothing came out. She just sat there staring at me with a look of complete and total regret. And in that moment I realized something. Michael had protected me one last time, even after he was gone. He had left behind the truth, and the truth had finally set me free. After Attorney James finished reading the letter, no one moved. The silence in that room was so heavy, it felt like it was pressing down on all of us. Margaret sat there with her hands over her face crying. Robert sat next to her staring at the floor. David had walked out and had not come back. Sarah was still kneeling in front of me holding my hands. And I just sat there feeling like my whole body had gone numb. Attorney James folded the letter carefully and put it back in the envelope. He looked around the room at everyone. Michael wanted you all to know the truth, he said quietly. And now you do. I think it is time for this family to decide what they are going to do with that truth. He stood up and walked out of the room. He closed the door behind him and left us all sitting there alone. Sarah squeezed my hands and looked up at me with tears streaming down her face. Emma, I do not even know what to say, she whispered. We have been so terrible to you. I have been terrible to you. I should have stood up for you. I should have defended you. But I did not. And I am so sorry. I looked down at Sarah. She was the only one in this family who had ever been kind to me. The only one who had ever treated me like I mattered. And even she had not been strong enough to fight against Margaret. I understood that now. No one in this family had ever been strong enough to stand up to Margaret. Not even Michael. It is okay, Sarah, I said quietly. You did not know the truth. None of us did. Sarah shook her head. But I should have believed you, she said. I should have known that you would never hurt Michael. You loved him so much. Everyone could see it. I should have trusted that. I pulled Sarah up and hugged her. We stood there holding each other and crying. And for the first time since Michael died, I felt like I was not completely alone. When we finally pulled apart, I looked over at Margaret. She was still sitting in her chair. Her hands were in her lap now. She was staring at the envelope on Attorney James's desk. She looked so small, so broken. Nothing like the strong, angry woman who had screamed at me in the hospital. Nothing like the woman who had called me a murderer in the grocery store. I walked over to her slowly. Robert looked up at me with sad, tired eyes. He did not say anything. He just watched as I stood in front of his wife. Margaret, I said quietly. She looked up at me. Her face was pale and her eyes were red and swollen. She looked at me like she was seeing me for the first time. Really seeing me. I know you loved Michael, I said. My voice was shaking, but I kept going. I know you are hurting. I know you lost your son, and that pain is something I cannot even imagine. But I lost my husband. I lost the person I loved most in this world. And when I needed support, when I needed someone to hold me and tell me it was going to be okay, you turned the whole world against me. You made me feel like I was a murderer. You made me question myself every single day. You destroyed me, Margaret. Margaret closed her eyes. Fresh tears rolled down her face. I know, she whispered. I know. I took a deep breath. But Michael left that letter because he knew what you would do, I said. He knew you would blame me. And he wanted to make sure you knew the truth. So now you know. And now you have to decide what you are going to do about it. Margaret opened her eyes and looked at me. What do you want from me? She asked. Her voice was so quiet I could barely hear her. I thought about that question for a long moment. What did I want from her? Did I want an apology? Did I want her to beg for my forgiveness? Did I want to see her suffer the way she made me suffer? Part of me did. Part of me wanted to make her feel every bit of pain she had caused me. But standing there looking at this broken woman, I realized something. Hurting her was not going to bring Michael back. It was not going to fix anything. It was not going to heal me. I just want the truth to be out there, I said. I want people to know I did not kill my husband. I want my name cleared. And I want you to stop spreading lies about me. Margaret nodded slowly. She wiped her face with her hands and took a shaky breath. You are right, she said. You are right about everything. I was wrong, Emma. I was so wrong. I was angry and I was hurting and I needed someone to blame. And you were there. You were the easiest target. But that was not fair. None of it was fair. She stood up slowly. She looked old and tired. She took a step toward me and for a second, I thought she was going to hug me, but she stopped. She just stood there looking at me with regret all over her face. I am sorry, Margaret said. Her voice broke when she said it. I am so sorry for everything I said. For everything I did. For the way I treated you. You did not deserve any of it. You loved my son. I know that now. I think I always knew it, but I was too proud to admit it. And now he is gone. And I cannot take back the things I said. I cannot undo the damage I caused. But I am sorry. I am so sorry. I stood there looking at Margaret. I could see that she meant it. I could see the pain in her eyes. The regret. The guilt. She was a mother who had lost her son. And in her grief she had destroyed an innocent person. She had destroyed me. And now she had to live with that. I forgive you, I said. Margaret looked up at me in shock. What she whispered. I forgive you, I said again. My voice was stronger now, not because what you did was okay. It was not okay. It will never be okay. But I'm not going to carry this anger around anymore. I have been carrying it for weeks, and it is too heavy. So I am letting it go. I am forgiving you. Not for you, but for me. Margaret broke down completely. She put her hands over her face and cried so hard her whole body shook. Robert stood up and put his arm around her. Sarah came over and stood next to me. We all stood there in that office surrounded by grief and pain and regret, but also surrounded by something else. Truth. The truth had finally come out. And it had changed everything. Over the next few weeks, things slowly started to get better. Margaret called everyone she had talked to and told them the truth. She told them about Michael's heart condition. She told them she had been wrong about me. She told them I was innocent. It was not easy for her. I could see that. Her pride was a hard thing for her to let go of. But she did it. She did it because Michael had asked her to in his letter. People started treating me differently. The neighbors who had stopped talking to me started saying hello again. The woman at the grocery store apologized to me. My friend who had stopped answering my calls reached out and said she was sorry. Slowly my life started to feel normal again. Or at least as normal as it could feel without Michael. Detective Harris called me one afternoon. He told me the investigation into Michael's death was closed. He said the medical records made it very clear that Michael had died from natural causes. He said there was no evidence of any wrongdoing. He apologized for having to question me in the first place. I thanked him and hung up the phone. And for the first time in weeks I felt like I could breathe again. Margaret and I did not become close. I do not think we ever could. Too much had happened. Too much pain had been caused. But we were civil to each other. She invited me to dinner. At her house one Sunday, I went. It was awkward at first. No one really knew what to say. But Sarah was there and she helped fill the silence. We talked about Michael. We shared memories. We laughed at stories about him. And it felt good. It felt like we were finally honoring him the way he deserved to be honored. At the end of the dinner, Margaret walked me to the door. She looked at me with tired eyes and said, "Thank you for coming, Emma. And thank you for forgiving me. I do not deserve it, but I am grateful for it." I nodded. Michael would have wanted this, I said. He would have wanted us to find peace. Margaret smiled a sad smile. He would have, she said. He always wanted everyone to get along, even when it was impossible. I left that house that night feeling something I had not felt in a long time. I felt closure, not complete closure. I do not think I will ever fully heal from losing Michael, but enough closure to start moving forward. Enough to start building a life again. A few months later, I started going through Michael's things. I had been avoiding it because it was too painful, but I knew I had to do it eventually. I went through his clothes, his books, his personal items, and then I found a small box in the back of his closet. I opened it and inside was a letter. It was addressed to me. To Emma. My heart started racing. I sat down on the floor and opened it with shaking hands. The letter said, "Emma, if you are reading this, it means I am gone. And I am so sorry. I am sorry for not telling you about my heart. I am sorry for leaving you alone. But I need you to know something. You were the best part of my life. Every single day I spent with you was a gift. You made me laugh. You made me feel loved. You made me feel like I was enough. And I need you to promise me something. I need you to promise me that you will keep living. Do not let my death stop you from being happy. Do not let grief consume you. Live, Emma. Live the life we talked about. Live for both of us. I love you forever, Michael." I held that letter to my chest and cried, but this time the tears felt different. They were not just tears of sadness. They were tears of gratitude. Gratitude for the time I had with Michael. Gratitude for the love we shared. Gratitude for the fact that he had loved me enough to leave me that letter. I kept Michael's promise. I started living again. I went back to work. I reconnected with friends. I started running in the mornings like I used to. I started smiling again, laughing again. And slowly the pain started to fade. It never went away completely. I do not think it ever will. But it became something I could carry. Something I could live with. Today, I am okay. I am not the same person I was before Michael died. I will never be that person again. But I am stronger now. I have survived the worst year of my life. I have. been blamed for something I did not do. I have been destroyed by grief and by the cruelty of others. But I came out the other side, and I am still here. Michael's letter saved me. It cleared my name, it gave me back my life, and it reminded his family that the people we love deserve better than blame and anger. They deserve truth. They deserve compassion. They deserve forgiveness. If you are watching this and you have ever been blamed for something you did not do, I want you to know something. The truth always comes out. It might take time. It might take longer than you think you can handle. But it will come out, and when it does, you will be free. Just like I am free now. My name is Emma. My husband died. His family blamed me, but his final words saved me, and I am still here. And I'm going to be okay. If this story touched your heart, please subscribe to her words right now. Hit that subscribe button and turn on the notifications so you never miss another story. Drop a comment below and tell me what part of this story hit you the most. This channel is for real people sharing real pain and real truth. You are not alone. None of us are alone. Thank you for listening to my story, and thank you for being here. I will see you in the next video.